Welcome to Make It a Better Day, the podcast where we explore life changing insights and actionable strategies for living your best life. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Megan. Today, we're diving deep into something that literally shapes our existence: human connection. You know, just this morning, I was reading a fascinating article that opened with a Tony Robbins quote that stopped me in my tracks: "The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships."
That's such a powerful statement, and it really sets the stage for our discussion today. Before we dive in, I have to share something that happened to me last week that perfectly illustrates this point. I was having one of those overwhelming days: deadline pressures, family commitments, you name it.
Yeah, we all know those days.
Right? But then my neighbor, who I usually just wave to in passing, noticed I seemed stressed and invited me in for tea. That 30-minute conversation completely transformed my day, and it got me thinking about how these seemingly small connections can have such a huge impact.
That's exactly what our article discusses: how these authentic human connections are the real currency of a well-lived life. The research backing this up is fascinating. Did you know studies from Harvard's long-running Grant and Glueck studies show that strong relationships are a better predictor of long and happy lives than social class, IQ, or even genes?
That's incredible. The article mentions several other studies too. Can you break down some of those key findings for our listeners?
Absolutely. Recent research in positive psychology shows that people with strong social connections have a 50% increased chance of longevity. They also have lower rates of anxiety and depression, higher self-esteem, and even greater empathy. The science is clear: our relationships don't just make life more enjoyable, they're fundamental to our survival.
Let's talk about the Oprah and Gayle King example from the article. Their friendship spans 4 decades, which is remarkable, but what really interests me is how they've maintained such authenticity despite massive success and public scrutiny.
Yes, and there are so many lessons we can learn from their friendship. Oprah once said that Gayle was the only person who genuinely was the same with her before, during, and after fame. But what's really interesting is how they've maintained that connection: regular phone calls, honest feedback, and unwavering support through both successes and challenges.
The article outlines several specific strategies for building these kinds of deep connections. Should we break these down for our listeners?
Definitely. The first one is mastering the art of presence. You know, it's ironic: we're more connected than ever through technology, but often less present in our actual interactions.
Can you give our listeners some practical tips for being more present?
Here's a concrete exercise: next time you're having a conversation, try the 3-2-1 technique. Focus on 3 things the person is saying, notice 2 things about their body language, and find 1 point to ask a deeper question about. This helps train your brain to stay engaged and show genuine interest.
That's brilliant. The article also emphasizes empathy as a key component. Let's explore that a bit more.
Yes, and this is where things get really interesting. Empathy isn't just about understanding others, it's about creating a safe space for authentic connection. One practical way to develop empathy is through perspective-taking exercises.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Next time you're in a disagreement, try this: before responding, pause and ask yourself, what might be going on in their world that I don't know about? This simple pause can transform conflicts into opportunities for deeper understanding.
Speaking of conflict, let's talk about the article's advice on navigating disagreements with grace. This feels especially relevant in today's divided world.
Absolutely. The article suggests using I statements, which sounds simple but requires practice. Instead of saying "you never listen," try "I feel unheard when." This small shift can make a huge difference in how your message is received.
That reminds me of another key point from the article: the importance of regular investment in relationships. The article compares it to making deposits in an emotional bank account. What are your thoughts on that metaphor?
It's such a powerful way to think about relationships. Just like a financial account, you can't keep making withdrawals without making deposits. Simple things like remembering important dates, checking in during tough times, or even just sending a funny meme that reminds you of them, these are all deposits.
You know what's interesting? Research shows that small, consistent actions often have more impact than grand gestures.
Exactly. A Harvard study mentioned in the article found that people who maintained regular, brief contact with their social circle reported higher levels of well-being than those who had occasional but longer interactions.
Let's talk about vulnerability. The article suggests it's crucial for deeper connections, but I know many of our listeners might find this challenging.
This is where Brené Brown's research comes in handy. She found that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's actually our most accurate measure of courage. Start small, maybe share a current challenge you're facing or admit when you don't know something.
Can you give our listeners a practical exercise for practicing vulnerability?
Here's what I call the 3 levels deep exercise. When someone asks how you are, instead of saying fine, share something real but manageable. Then share something you're looking forward to, and finally, something you're working on improving. It creates natural openings for genuine connection.
That's fantastic. The article also discusses the importance of cultivating gratitude in relationships. Why is this so crucial?
Research from the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley shows that expressing gratitude strengthens relationships in 2 ways. First, it makes us more aware of the positive actions of others. Second, it encourages reciprocal positive behavior.
What's a simple way our listeners can start practicing relationship gratitude?
Try the daily 3 practice. Each day, text 3 different people something specific you appreciate about them. Not just thanks, but I really appreciated how you listened yesterday when I was struggling with that work decision.
These are such actionable tips. Now, let's address something many of our listeners might be thinking: how do we maintain these connections in our busy, modern lives?
This is where technology can actually help us if we use it intentionally. The article mentions setting up regular check-in systems. I've started what I call Connection Sundays, 30 minutes dedicated to reaching out to people I haven't talked to recently.
That's brilliant. And speaking of intentional connection, can we discuss the role of different types of relationships? The article mentions the importance of diverse social connections.
Yes. Think of it as a relationship portfolio. You need close family ties, intimate friendships, casual acquaintances, and even what sociologists call weak ties, like your local barista or postal worker. Each type serves a different purpose in our social well-being.
Let's get practical. What's your advice for someone who feels their social connections have weakened over time?
Start with what I call the reconnection challenge. Choose 5 people you've lost touch with and reach out with a specific memory you share. It's less pressure than trying to explain the gap in communication, and it usually leads to natural conversation.
That's so doable. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the article's challenge to our listeners. How can they put these insights into action starting today?
Here's a simple 3-step plan. First, identify one relationship you want to strengthen. Second, choose one strategy we've discussed today. Third, commit to one.
Let me jump in there. You're about to outline the 3rd step. What specific action should our listeners commit to?
Here's a simple 3-step plan. First, identify one relationship you want to strengthen. Second, choose one strategy we've discussed today. Third, commit to one specific, measurable action you'll take each week for the next month. For example, if you choose your sister as the relationship and presence as your strategy, your action might be: I will have one 30-minute phone call with no distractions every Sunday evening.
And what I love about this approach is that it's manageable. We're not asking people to completely overhaul their social lives overnight.
Exactly. Small, consistent actions create lasting change. You know, there's this fascinating study mentioned in the article about how it takes about 66 days to form a new habit. So starting with 30 days is a great way to build momentum.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to address something that might be holding some listeners back: the fear of rejection or awkwardness when reaching out to reconnect.
Such an important point. The article actually addresses this indirectly through what psychologists call the liking gap, where we consistently underestimate how much others like us and appreciate our efforts to connect.
That's fascinating. Can you elaborate on that research?
Studies show that when we reach out to others, they typically appreciate it much more than we expect. In fact, a recent study found that people consistently underestimate by about 50% how much others value being reached out to.
That's really encouraging for anyone hesitating to make that first move to reconnect.
Absolutely! And remember, authenticity is key. You don't need a perfect speech prepared. Sometimes a simple "I was thinking about you" is the most powerful message you can send.
As we close today's episode, let's remind our listeners about the resources available through Make It a Better Day.
Yes! On our website, you'll find articles and videos on a variety of topics to make your day better.
And don't forget to check out our Redbubble store, where we have beautiful items featuring article-themed artwork, perfect reminders to prioritize relationships in your daily life.
The quality of your life truly is the quality of your relationships, and we hope today's discussion has given you practical tools to enhance both.
Thank you all for joining us today. Remember, every genuine connection, no matter how small, adds to the richness of your life. We'd love to hear about your experiences as you implement these strategies.
You can share your stories and connect with other listeners in our online community. As Tony Robbins said, and as we've explored today, the quality of your life is the quality of your relationships, so why not start improving both right now?
That's all for today's episode of the Make It a Better Day podcast.
Until next time, keep cultivating those connections and making each day a little bit better.